So, what is the world, really? I mean, at its absolute core. Is it just a big collection of random parts bumping into each other? Or is there something more to it? Some kind of deeper unity? Today, we're going to dive right into that question by exploring three huge worldviews, all laid out by the philosopher Herman Bavinck. And this right here is the fundamental puzzle. At first glance, the world seems like this chaotic sea of things just coming and going. But if you look a little closer, you start to see patterns, right? You see harmony, maybe even a sense of purpose. This question has haunted thinkers for centuries, and it's the big riddle we're tackling today. All right, so to understand the proposed solutions, we first have to get a really good grip on the problem itself. And it basically all boils down to this timeless philosophical clash, the conflict between what's called being and becoming. The ancient world was pretty much torn between two extremes. On one side, you had thinkers who argued that only being is real, a single, stable, unchanging reality, where all the change we see is just an illusion. But on the other side, you had thinkers who said, nope, only becoming is real, a world of constant, chaotic change and endless motion. So how do you solve a riddle like that? Well, the first major attempt, one that got a huge boost with the rise of modern science, was to see the world as, well, a giant machine. This idea is called atomism. The theory is that everything, and I mean everything, from the stars in the sky to your own thoughts, can ultimately be explained by the mechanical interactions of tiny, soulless material atoms. And you can see why it's a powerful idea, right? It feels simple. It feels scientific. But here's the catch, and this brilliant analogy from Bavinck just nails it. You can't get order, complexity, and meaning from pure random chance. I mean, think about it. A chaotic swirl of atoms just doesn't explain how you get a poem, or a planet, let alone a person. In fact, the machine view completely fails to answer some of the biggest questions we have. As the physiologist Dubois-Reymond pointed out, a purely mechanical universe can't explain the origin of life. It can't explain the source of our thoughts. And it definitely can't explain free will. That gap between lifeless matter and a living, thinking being, well, it just becomes way too wide to cross. So this failure, it led to a reaction. People started thinking, okay, if dead matter can't explain the universe, maybe the answer isn't matter at all. Maybe the fundamental stuff of reality is active energy. This view is called dynamism, and it completely flips the script. Instead of energy being a property of matter, matter is just an appearance created by these immaterial centers of force. Now, this seems to solve the problem of life and motion, right? Because now the universe is fundamentally active, not passive and dead. But this worldview runs smack into a brand new problem. If all the matter we see is just an illusion created by invisible forces, how can we possibly trust our own senses? The world we see and touch suddenly becomes unreal, and that leads you straight down the rabbit hole to skepticism about reality itself. Okay, so if the world isn't a dead machine and it's not some kind of immaterial illusion, what's left? Well, this brings us to Bavinck's third way. The worldview, he says, combines the best of both, the idea of the world as an organism. Bavinck argues that the world is absolutely not an accidental collection of lifeless, colliding parts. But instead, it's a living, developing, and totally integrated whole, a lot like a biological organism. And this table just brilliantly shows the difference. A machine, it's just the sum of its parts, right? It gets pushed around by external forces. It doesn't really develop. But an organism, that's an integrated whole, animated by an internal principle, an idea. It develops from within, and it's always moving toward a specific goal. The organic view doesn't throw out mechanics. It just says, hey, mechanics is only one piece of a much, much richer reality that also includes life and spirit. So, the logic behind this view is the logical. Bavinck argues that all things are knowable because they first existed as an idea in a divine mind, sort of like a blueprint. Then, a divine will gives that idea existence. And the world we experience, that's the living result, a dynamic reality that is actively realizing its original design. This quote just captures it perfectly. The universe isn't some random accident. It's a single, cohesive, living whole, where every single part is distinct, yet completely interconnected, all unified by the idea that animates it. And that leads us to the most profound implication of this whole organic worldview, the idea that the universe has a purpose. This is a concept called teleology. Teleology basically means that things are best understood not just by what caused them, but by their goal or their end. So, in an organic universe, things aren't just happening from something, they're happening for something. There's a direction, there's a goal. See, the mechanical view is obsessed with just one question: how? How do the atoms collide? How do the gears turn? But the organic view, it accepts the how, but it insists that we have to ask the much, much bigger question: why? Why is there life in the first place? What is the ultimate purpose of all this? Bavinck wraps up his argument with this powerful line from Scripture. In the organic worldview, everything has a source, a sustainer, and, crucially, a final destination. It's a universe that's just brimming with meaning, where the whole story is moving toward a final chapter. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If the universe really has a purpose, then it isn't just a mechanism, it's a story, a grand narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the real question becomes, what's your role in it?